Good morning. I want to use this video to talk about a hobby of mine, which is collecting Bible translations. I think some people probably don't realize this, but there's actually hundreds, maybe even thousands of translations from the Greek into English. And some of these are wildly inaccurate, but many are accurate. They just never caught on in popularity. And I look for these at bookstores and estate sales and thrift stores and antique shops and wherever I happen to be. I keep my eye open for a interesting translation. I'll read the preface, and if it looks like they were trying to go for a very accurate translation, then I'll pick that up and go home and kind of research its history. And that's just something that is an interest of mine. My wife, she's pretty cool. She bought me this book as an early Christmas gift. This is a Tyndale, which a lot of people have probably heard of, but you might not have seen. Tyndale, he was the first person to translate the Bible from Greek into English. Wycliffe was the first person to make an English copy of the Bible, but his was translated from the Latin Vulgate. So Tyndale came along and he got his hands on the Greek text, and this was very important because for years the Catholic Church, they denied that the Bible was even originally in Greek. They said that the original language was Latin. And they didn't want the average everyday person to have a copy of the Bible in a language they could read, because the average person read in English at the time, and this is anywhere between the 1300s to 1500s, around that time period. The Latin Church, they had a agenda to keep the Bible only in the hands of the clergy. And so they made sure that it was Latin only, and it was actually illegal to have an English copy of the Bible. And if you were caught with one, oftentimes you were, burned alive. Your family members were burned alive. It was very difficult for the average person to get a hands on a Bible they could read. This is something that Tyndale set out to change, and he made an excellent translation of the Bible. From all accounts, it's accurate. Easy to read, or at least it was for them. Reading it today in the original language is going to be slightly difficult because so much of our language has changed, but it's not impossible. And anyway, my wife got me this copy, which is especially interesting because this is a facsimile of the first edition. A facsimile, is a reproduction, where they try to accurately represent one of the original first editions of the book. And so there's only 3 copies known to exist of the first edition Tyndale. One of those happens to be in the British Library, and what the people who made this particular facsimile did is they took someone to digitize that copy in the British Library and put those images together in a book format. Now this is especially interesting to me because for a long while I worked as a digitization technologist, and it was my job to do this very thing. I would capture images of antique documents, Civil War journals, presidential decrees, things of that nature. And we created a repository of this information. And that's what they did here, which is a bit unusual, because usually what would happen for you to make a copy of something like this, you would maybe scan the page and then use a optical character recognition software to get all the text, and then you would end up with a text document. And I think it's very interesting that they instead tried to go with a collection of images. It's much more interesting. I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let's see if this will show up on the camera. You can see we just went through page by page to the Bible, photographing it, and then bound those photographs together. And since I understand the techniques they would have used to put this together, this is especially interesting to me. And they did an excellent job of it. It's very clear, very high quality. and this is just going to be a pleasure to look through. But it's almost like holding an original Tyndale in your hands. So anyway, this is the 1526 edition Tyndale from the British Library. Hendrickson Bibles published it. So if you want to get a copy for yourself, I recommend it. It's kind of like holding a bit of history. And this would have been close to the original size. The original Tyndale was made to fit into pockets. It was a very small book. And I do have a thing for tiny books. So this is just a beautiful copy of it. Anyway, I rambled on long enough, but I just kind of wanted to show off this new addition to my collection. And y'all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later.